Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. I know I've started a few videos off like that in the recent past, but I'm doing something I've never done before, and that's discussing a TV show. That's because I think the TV show is really interesting and probably fits into the demo of the people who watch my channel. The footage that you're watching is either going to be from Command Modern Air Naval Operations or from the first-person shooter Verdun. I'm not sure what I'm actually going to show as I kind of get the game footage and mix it in with the audio, but it'll be one of those. If it is Verdun, that's because Verdun is now out on PlayStation 4, which I own. I did a couple of videos that included footage from Verdun back in the day, some of the stuff when it was in early beta, and some a very little bit after it kind of got its official release. But it just recently came to consoles as well, so I thought I might take a look at it there. If it's Command, it'll probably be one of the new scenarios that's out with Command Live. But anyway, guys, that's neither here nor there. That's the background to this video. So what am I talking about? This is something I haven't done before, and, I've mentioned I'm going to be doing a TV show, so the question is, what is the TV show? Well, the TV show I wanted to talk about in this video is called Designated Survivor. The show stars Keifer Sutherland as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, as he is designated the designated survivor during the President's State of the Union address in the first episode. This video will be looking really just at the first episode. I don't know if I'll have a reoccurring thing with this series or if this is just going to be a one-time thing about my thoughts, but basically he's designated as the survivor during the State of the Union. And you may be wondering, well, what the heck is the designated survivor? Well, what the designated survivor is it's someone in the presidential line of succession. I think there's something like 20 some odd people who are in line of succession. So if the president dies, everybody knows kind of that the vice president will take over. If the vice president and the president both die, then you end up, falling down the chain of succession, and there's multiple, different people down that chain from Secretary of State to Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. I think Secretary of Defense is in there, basically cabinet members who serve in the president's administration. And Housing and Urban Development is kind of a more junior cabinet position traditionally. It's not one of the big prestige spots like Secretary of State. But the idea behind the designated survivor is that in the event of a catastrophe where, large numbers of Congress and the cabinet are killed in some sort of attack or disaster, this individual will be removed from the scene. So traditionally, whenever the president issues a joint session to Congress, when they get in front of Congress and talk to the entire Congress and the whole cabinet's there, all the pageantry, then there will be someone who will not attend. At least one person, sometimes multiple people. Actually, when President Bush was addressing Congress after the 9/11 attacks, Dick Cheney, the vice president, and someone else, I forget what the other's individual's name was, but another individual was designated as the survivor. So there were, Tommy Thompson, that's who it was. So you had two separate designated survivors, I believe in different locations, so that if there had been another terrorist attack on the Congress and everybody was killed, you'd still have continuity of government. Cheney would have survived. Although in many cases, like when the president gives the State of the Union address, the vice president is expected to be there, and most of the senior cabinet officials are expected to be there. So they often designate someone somewhere in the line of succession to take over in the event of a major attack. This idea really got started during the Cold War, when the idea of a nuclear attack seemed plausible. And the risk of a single nuclear weapon being able to destroy the United States government's ability to function seemed plausible. So in that case, I believe they were always out of the city also. So, you're giving your State of the Union address. If the Russians nuke us, they've got someone somewhere else in the country far enough removed from the attack where they'd be able to take over. And I believe, during these formal circumstances, when someone is designated as the survivor, the nuclear football, there's a copy of it that actually follows them around, although they're not given any instructions on what to do. There is actually a popular Tom Clancy book called Debt of Honor, where Jack Ryan is designated the vice president. Not really the designated survivor, perhaps, but he's the only survivor in all of Congress and ends up becoming president because of that, which is, kind of a similar vein of this massive sort of attack. Well, in the TV show, which is on ABC, Designated Survivor, Keifer Sutherland is designated as the survivor for the president during his State of the Union address. So just a run-of-the-mill State of the Union. And the reason he's designated as the survivor, it appears to be, is because the president's in the process of firing him. So the president's basically said, you're not the right guy for the re-election campaign, which is going to be getting going. They spend a couple of minutes kind of building up his character to make him seem like a likable, hardworking guy, just sort of an ordinary run-of-the-mill cabinet member. So, I guess as run-of-the-mill as you can be if you're in the United States cabinet. Seems a little bit far-fetched, but if you're going to get anyone in the line of succession as a ordinary everyman, then, probably someone in a lower cabinet position is the most realistic scenario. So basically he's told, hey, listen, you know what? You're not the right guy to continue with the administration. We'd like you to take an ambassadorship. He's more or less being fired, but being fired in a polite way. There's no scandal. There's no, huge reason to do it. It's just, he's not the right man to continue going forward, or so the president thinks. And then, probably also to try and get him out of the spotlight, not have the guy they're about to fire be at the State of the Union and, potentially be on camera, they designate him as the survivor to kind of get him out of the way. Well, during that State of the Union, as you can guess from the name of the show, there's an attack on Congress and everybody is killed, leaving Keifer Sutherland as the President of the United States. This opens up some interesting plot lines going forward with the show. So, and forewarning, guys, these are spoilers that I'm going to be talking about. So if this is a show that sounds interesting to you, but you don't want to know what happens in the first episode, feel free to stop this video right now. I think spoiling the fact that Keifer Sutherland becomes president is assuming you haven't seen any, is assuming you haven't seen any trailers, because that's abundantly clear with the title of the show and with any marketing you've seen for it, so that bit isn't too much of a spoiler, but I'm going to get into some details in the episode as we move on, so feel free to tune out if that's something you're interested in and haven't watched it yet. So Keifer Sutherland becomes president, but remember, he had been asked to resign or asked to pick a different position, and he was considering resigning. Now, he didn't actually resign, so this is going to pose, I'm sure, they already hint at it, this is going to pose some challenges for the series going forward, where there's obviously going to be some questioning of his legitimacy. Should he really be the president? I mean, he was fired, wasn't he? Which is interesting if you compare it with Debt of Honor, where Jack Ryan becomes president. He was the vice president, so it's a direct succession, but he wasn't necessarily fully all the way sworn in. It was kind of unclear. It was a little bit confusing, and the previous vice president had actually formally resigned. He had signed a letter of resignation, but then in some of the later books, between Debt of Honor and then Executive Orders, the follow-on book, which details the immediate aftermath of the attack, Jack Ryan, and again, spoiler alerts for these books as well, which are like 20 years old, Jack Ryan has to deal with a challenge to his authority because the vice president claims he never signed a resignation letter and has someone steal it. So he tries to claim, you're not really the vice president. I was still the vice president. I imagine we're going to see something like that happen with Keifer Sutherland, where someone says you weren't really the, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. You had resigned, or you had been asked to leave. Therefore, you have no claim to the presidency. So that'll be an interesting plot line, and I look forward to that being explored. I can't imagine that he isn't the president. I mean, from a legal standpoint, he never actually resigned. He was offered a different position. He hadn't decided what he was going to do yet. So in every sense of the word, his boss died before, he had actually been fired. He had been told he was going to be fired or reassigned, but that hadn't actually happened yet. Additionally, there's obviously going to be some tension between the military and him, at least, the head honcho military guy. They show to be a very Curtis LeMay type figure. We need to bomb Iran. They're sending some destroyers out and kind of challenging America in this time of crisis. And he wants to be very belligerent. And he makes some remarks that clearly indicate he's going to challenge the president's authority, if not potentially even leading a direct coup against him. I talked to a few friends about it, and some of them are a little concerned, is the show really going to paint the military out to be some power-hungry, clique? But I think they're really just portraying him as a sort of Curtis LeMay type character, which the vast majority of the military is not like that, but I could see in this sort of a scenario, that being the case. What the show does a very good job of is sort of capturing this overwhelming feeling. I was a little bit annoyed with the fact that the show really started on too fast of a pace. The bombing occurs within seconds of the show starting. I thought they could have done a better job leading up to that point and really portraying Sutherland as a kind of everyday person. They kind of do it in some flashbacks, but it feels rushed. It doesn't feel terribly authentic. It is admittedly a pilot for a show. That first episode, you've really got to capture your viewership. But I think if you're really trying to portray him as the everyman, as the good person, they could have done a better job of building up sort of the whole family dynamic. I was also a little bit annoyed where it felt like they were just cramming too much into the first episode. Sutherland becomes president. His family gets moved into the White House during this whole crisis. Fine, that makes sense. Stand in a secure location. But then he has sort of a moment where he's overhearing his kids talking about, him being president. What does that mean? And I don't really know if that has a place in this first episode, considering he's spending the vast majority of his time sort of downstairs or in the Situation Room or in the Oval Office, and some time talking to his wife. But I think they kind of tried to overdo it and hit every single angle. What I think would have been nice, and they didn't show, and maybe they will in future episodes, because it's still very much the early hours after the attack. But I think it would have been interesting, if you're going to move his family in, it would have been interesting to see, like, okay, so they're taking his wife to to the East Wing, his kids arrive, and holy crap, the clothes for the previous president's kids, their pajamas or whatever are sitting out, the kids are still, maybe he had kids. The kids are still in the White House when they show up, and maybe his wife wasn't, or I guess she probably would have been at the State of the Union, but maybe his kids wouldn't, and kind of trying to deal with that and that drama and that horror. That was something that I think Tom Clancy did a really good job in the Jack Ryan series of really kind of portraying the horrific and sudden nature of the attack, and how as he's starting to move into the White House, there's these little things where it's just like, it's not really his home, it's not really his place, and he's taking over, and what happens to these previous tenants in the house. And I think that could have been something that could have been really powerful from a TV show standpoint, and it feels like they kind of botched it and just rushed through it. In addition, the family interactions seem a little bit forced and out of place with everything else going on. But where the show really hit its mark and did a great job, in my opinion, was, even though I don't like that frantic, the show just started and now you're the president sort of mode, I think it did a great job of making Sutherland feel overwhelmed. From the moment he finds out he's president to being in the Situation Room, incredibly frantic, really high pace, really kind of just, you can sense they're trying to communicate, like, holy crap, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and he's overwhelmed, and things are happening too quick, and people are looking for him to make decisions, and realizing he's not able to, he's not ready to, and just sort of that, like, almost people dismissing him, like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I think the show did a great job there, and that was really the high watermark for the show, is that, as he goes into the Situation Room for the first time, he's rushed into the White House, he's sworn in, he goes into the Situation Room, and, just this overwhelming sense of panic, and then he kind of has a moment in the bathroom where he's throwing up and is really nervous, and someone else in the stall, across the way doesn't realize he's actually, the president is in there, and he's kind of having this interaction. I thought the show did a very good job there. It's a little cliche at points where he's kind of, he's immediately just challenging the general on his, what he wants to do, and saying, like, listen, no, we're going to do it my way. There's a little bit of cliche there, and a little bit maybe forced. Maybe he kind of starts rising into the role of president a little bit too quickly. I've seen some reviews that claim that the dialogue in it is too cliche, of like, we need you to be strong for us. But at the same time, like, if you're this new guy who's in this position and these people are trying to pump you up and, like, give you confidence, like, anyone who's been I can't speak to the White House, but anyone who's been in a sporting environment where, like, a key player goes down and is injured and someone needs to step up, those kind of scenarios, like, yeah, it's cliche, but everybody does it. Like, if you're trying to communicate to someone and you're trying to get them, to believe in themselves and that they can do this, then yeah, there's going to be some bullshit, just pump the guy up, make him feel good about himself, and just throw some meaningless words around. That stuff happens. So I'm less concerned with that. I think, it is what it is. And while some people may not have liked some of that dialogue, I also think it's incredibly spot on to probably what you would see in a real life scenario where, this guy's our only hope. And yeah, America does need confidence. It does need leadership. It does need someone to step up and reassure it in this time of crisis. I saw some other criticisms like, why don't you show rioting in America and people freaking out about not what to do? And I think the show, in this sense, did a good job of restraining itself and trying to be like, okay, no, we can't do so much in the first episode. I just finished criticizing it for trying to do too much on sort of the home front and the White House front. But from a nationwide front, I really hope, they delve into a couple of episodes with the country trying to, come to terms with what's happened and sort of social unrest of like, hey, we didn't vote for this guy. He wasn't elected. Now he's the president. I think they really need to delve into a few episodes about that. There's a ton of potential with them delving into things like, hey, we got to rebuild the Congress. Like, all of Congress is dead. What's the president is he like a king or an emperor now? There's no one to challenge him. They're going to need to deal with episodes dealing to like, okay, we need a new Supreme Court now because they attend as well. Maybe someone shows up in the rubble in episode 2 who's actually still alive and, he becomes president and Sutherland kind of loses his role temporarily, but then, that individual passes away from the wounds and he's back in charge again. Like, it'll be interesting to see if they do any of that. What I really hope they stay away with, and what I've been kind of holding off on talking about till now, is during the president's speech, he was giving a talk about how, for too long, America's 1% have been getting richer and richer, and America's, ordinary civilians have suffered. The system in the United States is working for the super rich, and it's not working for anyone else. And regardless if you think that's regardless if that's your political beliefs or if that's what you think, and I'm not going to tell you where I fall on it. I'm not saying I don't. I'm not saying I do. But regardless if that's what you really think, the thing that concerns me about this is the fact that they're showing this in the episode as part of the speech that the president gives before he's killed. I really don't want this to become another conspiracy theory. I don't want this to be a false flag. I don't want this to be, oh my God, the CIA killed. Like, it's so far-fetched. If that's what it turns into, that's going to destroy the show. It's going to become a thriller. It's not going to be what I hope for. What I almost hope for is like a combo of like a Jack Ryan everyday sort of you're the president now with like a West Wing type vibe where they try and make it a more serious drama. West Wing was too preachy for sure, but at least it tried to take the presidency seriously. Maybe a little overly optimistic, but it still tried to take the office seriously in a serious sort of drama show. And I think we haven't had that. Like, if you look at any of the TV shows, and I'm hardly a TV show connoisseur. I don't watch a lot of TV. It was rare for me to watch this outside of sporting events. And if you look at most of the shows that seem to be about this kind of thing, like I think there's one called Conspiracy, and it's just like, or maybe it's called Scandal, and it's just like, the president sleeping around and just, everything's a conspiracy, and there's secret government organizations, and just, it's soap opera TV. It's not a drama about, how would you deal with these real world situations. There's so much going on in the world today that I feel like it cries out for a good drama television to say like, okay, how would you address this? Like, let's try and blur party lines, which I think this kind of a show gives you the ability to say, let's take the politics out of it a bit. This guy wasn't elected. We don't know what party he's from. What does an ordinary person do in a scenario where Iran is challenging the United States? And you've got to make that decision. Or, the crises throughout the world, financial crises that come up, China and Southeast Asia, Russia and Ukraine, Iran. There's so much going on right now that I think there's a lot of potential to have a serious show about serious issues and, not devolve into conspiracy theory. The super rich are out to kill the president and install, a puppet president who they can control. or even, the military just decides to take over because they don't like the direction things are going. And, it kind of indicated that, the general may look at forming his own, his coup to launching a coup to overthrow Sutherland. So I hope it stays away from that too directly. Political infighting is fine. I think that would be natural in this sort of an event, but I just really hope they stay away from the, oh my goodness, Bill Gates or whoever, Warren Buffett is killing the president because he was a threat to his wealth. I'm worried it's going to go that direction. It's a Keifer Sutherland show. I never really watched 24, but it seems to be the kind of shows he's involved in where it's like, oh my goodness, the evil establishment is out to get him, and I just really hope it stays away from that. With that being said, I think the show does a pretty good job. It poses a lot of interesting questions. It really has a lot of rich material to work with. The challenges going on in the world today are fascinating, and having a show that deals with those, but also in this sort of a pick up the pieces and how do we move forward, has a lot of potential to be a really interesting show. And I enjoyed the first episode. Like I said, there were some things in there that I was kind of peeved about, little minor issues. I find it somewhat unlikely that the designated survivor is literally just down the street. I suppose he could be, but like if a terrorist group got a nuke into the Capitol building and set it off, very good chance he'd be dead too, and then there'd be no one in charge. So some minor quibbles there, but in general, an interesting and promising first episode. I just hope they don't try and check off all the potential issues and challenges that could face a new president in this scenario in a quick sort of haphazard way. I feel like in some sense they did that, in some sense they didn't in the first episode, and I hope they kind of slow things down a little bit. You get that initial pilot out there, you got to try and grow your audience and build a show quickly. So I understand that you want to capture people's attention, but as the series goes on, I hope they kind of pull back a little bit and say, let's not do too much. Let's not that to do nothing, but again, let's not try and do everything in one episode and run through all our material, because the sooner they run through those initial challenges and things like that, the sooner things are going to get weird, and you're going to be having aliens partnering with super rich to kill the president and install someone they can brain control or some stupid crap like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see the direction the show goes. I think this is a rich show that could be very good. I don't know if I'm going to do like a weekly recap of it. Interested in what you guys hear. I'm not really a TV critic or reviewer or anything. But as far as the show's concerned, I think it's worth a look and see if it's something that interests you. I might do something for Man in the High Castle, but I'm not sure, the Amazon series. But we'll see. I haven't watched it yet, so it might be something that's interesting. Again, these just seem to be kind of shows or ideas that are on topics that I think, you guys who watch my videos might find interesting and appealing. I'm not looking at changing the focus of my channel, just something like with some of the book reviews where I talk about some topics and issues, that people seem to be interested in and are relevant to some of the games that we play, at the same time. This is something that I think fits in that same niche. I'm still certainly focusing on historical games, war games at that, and, that's not going to change. But this is something that was, really interesting and appealing to me, and I don't watch a lot of TV to begin with, so I kind of wanted to share my thoughts. So those are my thoughts on the first episode of, and sort of also the general premise of Designated Survivor, starring Keifer Sutherland. I believe it's on ABC. I don't know what time, but it's on ABC on Wednesdays. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, check it out. I did put a couple of affiliate links in the description between, the Jack Ryan books I was talking about and links to Designated Survivor, so feel free to check those out. But, as far as that's concerned, that's really all I've got for you today. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video and the discussion. I have gigabit internet about it, by the way, now, which is awesome. Yeah, that's all I've got for you. So let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know if this is something you want to see more of or not. But until then, I appreciate everyone tuning in. Feel free to leave some comments and let me know your thoughts. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.